Liam Smith's murder. On November the 24th, 2022 in Wigan, UK, Liam Smith, a 38-year-old father of two, was brutally murdered outside his home. What started as a Tinder date in 2019 spiraled into a deadly act of revenge, orchestrated by a former lover and her new boyfriend. This is a cold-blooded murder that began with a swipe right on a dating app. Liam met Rachel Fullstow on Tinder in 2019. After a one-night stand, Fullstow claimed their encounter was non-consensual, but instead of going to the police, she kept the allegation to herself. Fast forward to 2021, she starts a relationship with Michael Hillier, a drug dealer. Fullstow told Hillier that Liam had raped her, and this time, Hillier wanted revenge. Hillier and Fullstow didn't report the alleged crime to authorities. Instead, they plotted a cold-blooded murder. On the evening of November the 24th, 2022, Hillier, dressed in a high-visibility vest, waited outside Liam's home for hours. He and Fullstow had planned everything: fake number plates, a stolen vehicle, and a gun. When Liam stepped outside, Hillier shot him in the face. But the horror didn't end with the gunshot. Hillier poured sulfuric acid onto Liam's body, a brutal act of violence meant to cause pain. After the murder, Hillier and Fullstow tried to cover their tracks. They went on a 2-week holiday to Jamaica, perhaps thinking they'd gotten away with it. But the police were closing in, and the investigation was far from over. When they returned, the police were waiting. Fullstow, initially a witness, became a prime suspect after repeatedly lying to investigators. Hillier, who was already on suspicion, was arrested shortly after. The investigation unraveled their twisted plan, piece by piece. At the trial, Hillier and Fullstow were found guilty of murder. Hillier claimed that he was acting in revenge for Fullstow, but the court saw through their lies. The couple had taken the law into their own hands, acting as judge, jury, and executioner. Hillier was sentenced to a minimum of 33 years, and Fullstow received a minimum of 30 years. Liam's family was devastated. His father spoke of the immense pain and heartbreak caused by his death, and the lies that led to his tragic end. Liam, a former soldier and dedicated father, was robbed of the chance to defend himself against false accusations. The terrifying case of Daniel Drayton. Daniel Drayton, a 27-year-old, presented himself as charming and normal on popular dating platforms like Tinder and Plenty of Fish. Women seeking companionship or perhaps love engaged with him, unaware they were stepping into a web of alleged deceit and extreme violence. He appeared emotional, a stand-up guy with no visible red flags, even to those who dated him for months. The horrifying truth began to surface with the discovery of 29-year-old Samantha Stewart, a dedicated Queen's nurse found dead in her home in July. Police quickly identified Drayton as the prime suspect, alleging he found and stalked through Tinder. But Samantha was just one name in a growing list of alleged victims. Investigators also linked Drayton to the rape of a woman in Brooklyn in June and the alleged captivity and attempted murder of a 28-year-old woman in California. Drayton himself chillingly claimed involvement in as many as 7 other murders. One of the most harrowing accounts came from Anya Barney, Drayton's ex-girlfriend, who dated him for 6 months after meeting on a dating app. Their relationship, initially seemingly normal, took a terrifying turn when Anya tried to end things. Drayton became aggressive, refusing to accept her decision. He would persistently show up at her house, even climbing through her window. Anya recounts Drayton becoming enraged in her car when she reiterated her desire to remain just friends. He leapt at her, pinning her knees, and in a horrifying act, strangled her, pressing his thumbs into her throat, threatening to kill her. This was the first time he'd ever laid a hand on her, leaving a lasting physical mark. Thanks to Good Samaritans, police were called and Drayton was arrested. However, he was later released, a fact Anya only discovered when she saw his face plastered across the news in connection with Samantha Stewart's murder. In court, Drayton has pleaded not guilty to charges including attempted murder, rape, and false imprisonment. Disturbingly, he reportedly claimed that voices in his head compelled him to commit these heinous acts, attempting to attribute his crimes to schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. However, Anya firmly believes he is fabricating these claims to escape justice, noting his intelligence and lack of such signs during their relationship. She also revealed his prior criminal history, which she only learned soon after their breakup. Grace Millane's last date. December the 1st, 2018, Auckland, New Zealand. 22-year-old Grace Millane, fresh from a backpacking journey, felt the familiar flutter of anticipation. She was meeting Jesse Kempson, a Tinder date, for the first time. They chose a popular crowded spot, a public meeting place, to instill a sense of safety. But for Grace, this was a cruel illusion. Jesse had no intention of doing anything untoward in public. He was waiting until they were alone. Their evening was a seemingly normal progression of a first date. At 5:37 p.m., Grace left her hostel. Jesse, meanwhile, was pre-gaming, downing several beers before their rendezvous. They met, moved to a Mexican bar, then another, the Blue Stone Room. At 8:54 p.m., they shared their first kiss. Grace, feeling a genuine connection, sent a final unsuspecting message to her friends. "It's going amazingly well. I just click with him so well." She believed she was spending the night with a man she genuinely liked. She had no idea he was about to end her life in the most horrific way possible. The next morning, Grace's phone buzzed with birthday wishes, each message tragically unanswered. The first chilling sign that something was terribly wrong emerged at 8:00 a.m. Jesse was captured on CCTV alone in the elevator, suspiciously looking at the camera. During the night, Jesse had killed Grace by strangulation. By 8:07 a.m., Jesse was on a chilling shopping spree. He bought a suitcase, checking its dimensions to ensure Grace's body would fit. 25 minutes later, he purchased cleaning supplies, tools for erasing the grim reality of his crime. He then rented a car, preparing for the disposal. What happened next is truly shocking. With Grace's body still in his apartment, Jesse went on another Tinder date. He wore the same clothes from the night before, the same clothes he may have worn when he committed murder. During this second date, he allegedly brought up a horrifying conversation where to hide a dead body from the police. The terrified woman, her instincts screaming, ended the date, unknowingly saving her own life. Later that evening, Jesse returned to his apartment with a carpet cleaner, desperately trying to remove any trace of Grace. He then reappeared in the elevator, struggling with a trolley laden with luggage, including the suitcase containing Grace's body. He drove to a remote location and buried her in the bush. Grace's family reported her missing on December the 5th. Her father flew to Auckland, making a heartfelt public appeal. Police, piecing together surveillance footage, cell phone data, and credit card payments made on Grace's card, swiftly identified Jesse Kempson as the prime suspect. On December the 5th, at 3:00 p.m., they apprehended him at the City Life Hotel. In interrogation, Jesse initially lied, but confronted with overwhelming evidence, he confessed. He claimed Grace had initiated a 50 Shades of Grey fantasy, and he'd accidentally strangled her. This 50 Shades of Grey defense was quickly dismissed as a desperate attempt to reduce his charge to manslaughter. Police found Google searches on his phone for how to hide a body, and even photos of Grace's body before and after he packed her into the suitcase. The search for Grace's body ended on December the 9th, when it was found in a remote area of Auckland. The autopsy confirmed she had been strangled. Grace had no idea that the man she trusted would betray her in such a horrific way. Jesse Kempson was found guilty of murder on February the 21st, 2020, and sentenced to life in prison. After his trial, 2 more women came forward, claiming Jesse had assaulted them after meeting him on Tinder, adding another 11 years to his sentence. Ashlyn Black's last Tinder date. Ashlyn Black was a vivacious 25-year-old from Layton, Utah. A fashion and outdoor enthusiast, she loved vintage shops, camping, and the raw energy of Nirvana. Ashlyn worked as a carer for children facing developmental challenges, a role that came naturally to her as she fiercely advocated for those who couldn't speak for themselves. With dreams of adoption, she radiated kindness, patience, and a welcoming spirit, her infectious laugh making everyone instantly comfortable. On May the 23rd, 2020, Ashlyn, like millions worldwide, was swiping through Tinder hoping for a match. She connected with 24-year-old Ethan Hunsaker, a recently separated father of one. The conversation flowed easily, leading to plans for dinner and drinks that very night. At around 9 p.m., Ethan picked Ashlyn up. They spent approximately 4 hours at a local bar, the evening seemingly progressing without incident. Then they headed back to Ethan's house. What followed was a descent into an unprovoked horror that no one could have foreseen. At 3:19 a.m. on May the 24th, a chilling 911 call pierced the pre-dawn silence. The caller was Ethan Hunsaker. His words were chilling. "I just killed someone." He even asked the officers to shoot him dead upon arrival. Police rushed to Ethan's home on North Reed Avenue. Inside, they found Ashlyn Black face down in the bedroom, her body riddled with multiple stab wounds. Paramedics fought valiantly, but it was too late. Ashlyn Black was pronounced dead at the scene. Ethan Hunsaker was covered in marks and scratches, and his responsibility was immediately evident. He confessed to the brutal crime, admitting to choking Ashlyn as hard as he could for about a minute as she lay sleeping on his arm. As she lay half-conscious, he then grabbed a knife from his kitchen, knelt over her, and stabbed her repeatedly, watching her bleed out for 10 agonizing minutes before making the 911 call. The motive? Ethan bluntly stated he'd invited Ashlyn over with the sole intention of killing her. He knew when he picked her up that night that if she came back to his house, he would take her life. There was no fight, no argument, just a cold, premeditated act of violence. Ethan Hunsaker was arrested and held without bail, charged with first-degree murder. His confession included admissions of daily homicidal and suicidal thoughts, and he was on medication for mental illness. Ethan was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison for his crime. However, this explanation offered no comfort to Ashlyn's devastated family, who described her killer as a monster. These stories leave us questioning the safety of online connections, but your thoughts matter too. How do you stay safe when using dating apps? Let us know in the comments.